Hello FM guys and girls, I'm the not so special one and we're back with another video for you today. Today's video is going to focus on 10 players that start your game in the Premier League that are not the most obvious go-to signings. So I've tried to give you 10 players to consider signing for your team, different players from different areas of the pitch, from different teams at different costs as well. We've got players in this that will cost you from as little as 10 million up to sort of 70 million pound. I've tried to find those players in the middle as well, that for players that you can sign for your squad around the 25 to 35 million pound mark as well. These players all start in the Premier League. They're all at Premier League clubs at the start, but hopefully not your go-to ones, not your most obvious, and hopefully they'll give you something to think about. Hopefully you'll look at some of these players, they could be of use to you. Some of them will be available straight from the off. You'll be able to sign them for not so silly money, and some of them might take a couple of seasons to keep an eye on. They might fall out of favour at their clubs, but hopefully what I've done here will show you that they can give you a return on your investment, and a good one at that as well. These are some of the most consistent players in the Premier League over the next 5 to 6 seasons, without being your Mo Salahs, your Erling Haalands, your Kevin De Bruyne's, your most obvious go-to superstars that mostly are be out of your reach to sign. These should be players that potentially are available for you to sign, players you can get into your team, and players that will perform for you. So what we did, we actually found these players through. I loaded up a game. I simmed 6 seasons as an unemployed manager, just let the game run through, and then I had a look after 6 seasons to see who the most consistent, who the best players were that you could pick out for who you wouldn't normally go to, who you wouldn't normally look at. I've never really looked at any of these players for any of my saves before, maybe 1 or 2, but in general, I mean, there's even one in there that I'd not even really heard of. I mean, that should hopefully give you something different. Anyway, just want to say before we kick off, thanks again to all of those of you that have subscribed already. This is quite a new channel. We've been going just over a week. I've got a few subscribers. I want to say thanks to you guys. It is really appreciated. It does take a lot of time and effort to put into these videos and make these videos. I'm doing it as a hobby. I'm not here for any other reason. I just really hope that other people enjoy my content. And I'm trying to put up the sort of thing that I'd be interested in watching. We've got a career mode going. We've got a European journeyman. We've got some player experiments on him. We've got some creator tactics. Well, we've done Leeds and Chelsea so far, so look out for those guys. But I hope you enjoy, and if you do, please do become my newest subscriber. Thank you very much. See you later. So my first player on my list of the 10 is slightly contradictory to what I've just said in the introduction. I know, guys, I know. James Ward-Prowse is not one of the less obvious players to go out there and sign, or not one of the players, the whole point of this video is to give you players that you wouldn't necessarily go to as straight away, I'm going to sign this player, I'm loading up a game to get this player into my squad. That's the idea. James Ward-Prowse kind of does go against the mould a little bit in the fact that he is one of, probably on my list of 10, the most obvious player to go and sign. The only reason I wanted that's kind of why I wanted to get him out of the way early on this video. I wanted to get him out of the way as number 10, but he still made my list for a couple of reasons. He had to. Mainly because of his consistency. As you'll see, I'm in June 2028 on this save. Now, don't get me wrong, I haven't actually managed anyone. I started as an unemployed manager, simmed through 6 seasons, because I wanted to see, and that's where I've built this list from, is those players that are the most consistent, that really surprised me about how good they were throughout the save. So players for you to consider for not just now, but some of these players that you're going to see, you might sign in a couple of years' time. They might depreciate in value, you might pick them up, and this video, like I said before, this should be useful hopefully to those of you that are starting brand new saves, but also to those of you that are 2, 3, 4 seasons in as well. Now, as we can see from Ward-Prowse, from his history, he has been ever consistent in the Southampton side. He is now 33 years old, and his value is depreciated to anywhere between 8 and 25 million. But even at the age of 33, he is still having effectively one of his best seasons on the whole game. Apart from that first season, I mean, he's matched it on statistics. He's matched it on average rating almost. He is one of those that's matured like a fine wine. As he's got older, he has stayed just as good. He stayed loyal to Southampton, which has changed on the game. Now we are 6 years in, like I said, and Chelsea and Man United are still interested in this guy. So even though he's 33, the top clubs still think that James Ward-Prowse has got something to offer. And although at the start of the game, now what I did again for the purpose of this video is I started up another save, just went in as Liverpool manager, and I just bid for all the players that are in this video just to see what sort of price range they are at the start of the game, what you've got to pay to get them at the start. However, you'll notice through this video that that's not always the case to look at. There are a couple of players that are silly money at the start that hugely depreciate in value looking at the game and become really, really solid players for the team that they join for massively cut down prices. So the point of this video is to show you those as well and consider them, have a look at them on your save, see where they are, see if you can pick them up for cheap prices, and I hopefully will show you in this video that they are still worth their money, still worth taking a chance on, because they can actually do a really good job for you. James Ward-Prowse is one of them. At the start of the game, you're probably looking in the regions of 60 to 80 million to get him in your team. It's a lot of dough. However, after sort of season 3 or 4, as he gets into his 30s, you may find that you can pick him up for 20, 25, 30 million maybe. If that is the case, he is absolutely worth a pump, because even at the age of 31, 32, 33 over the last few seasons, he still has plenty to offer. With regards to Southampton, I mean, his stats don't really appreciate at all. He's still extremely strong in all the areas, even though he's 33. He's still got a great work rate. His natural fitness is still 20 out of 20. Stamina is still 19. If you invest in James Ward-Prowse, he is not going to let you down for at least the next 6 seasons if you buy him at the start of the game. With regards to his sort of history at Southampton and how important he has been to them, if we look at their previous records, you can see that he has been their fans player of the year every single season. So Southampton haven't, over the course of 6 seasons, signed a player that is outperforming James Ward-Prowse in the fans' eyes. He is their number one. He is their golden boy. Highest average rating, he's been registered for those first 2 seasons. But even you'll see from the guys that are winning this award, like Leandro Trossard's come over from Brighton, the guys here that are winning, James Ward-Prowse, based on his previous, I mean, these guys are winning with 7.15, 7.06. I mean, you can see from James Ward-Prowse's, he is not far behind those guys. He is still up there with the very best, even if he's not quite the highest average rating in the team. Most assists, 2 out of the 6 seasons, James Ward-Prowse, and he's just had his best season. Anyone's best season at the club in the last 6 years. James Ward-Prowse has just recorded 15 assists in all competitions. Naturally, we wouldn't expect him to be in the top goal scorers, but yeah, that's player number 1. Like I said, a bit more of an obvious one, so that's why I wanted to get him out of the way. But James Ward-Prowse is your first player on my 10 not so common players to sign in the Premier League. Now, the second player on my list isn't necessarily the most overwhelming. This player, Carlos Vinicius, you just started your save and he's just joined Fulham for 4.3 million. In my save, which I started just to see what I could get players for, they are willing to let him go straight away at the very start of the save in the region of 5 to 6 million. So as long as they make a very, very small profit, they're willing to let him leave. He won't cost you a lot in wages. At the start of the save, he's going to be, what, 27? He's 33 on this save now, so at the end of our 6th season. And the reason that I've put him into this list is because after season 6 in the Premier League, as you can see, a little underwhelming to start with. He was signed for Fulham. They had a huge struggle in the Premier League, went down to Championship. He didn't really overwhelm. However, the last 3 seasons, this guy just seems to have come out of nowhere, dropping down to the Championship for the second time. He bangs in 19 goals, comes back into Premier League football, and he's got 35 goals in 2 seasons. On top of that, this season in the Premier League, he won the Golden Boot. At 33 years old, Carlos Vinicius of Fulham, who finished 8th in the Premier League, won the Golden Boot. Ahead of the likes of, I mean, these players that have come from it. It was a bit of an odd season, granted, in the fact, but a lot of these players are very old now. But Carlos Vinicius, 20 goals in 36 games. For a player that you can sign, clearly, there is somewhere that you can get the best out of this guy. Maybe the management here weren't playing him in the right roles. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But he comes good. he comes really good. For the sake of a minimal fee, if you're looking for a backup striker that can find the net and does become still a very, very good player, undoubtedly in the Premier League on FM23, then Carlos Vinicius is your man. If you need a backup striker for cheap money, you've got 5 million knocking around, he's got to be worth a punt. With these sorts of stats in the last 3 seasons, it's like he hits 30 and decides that he's going to become a good footballer. With regards to his stats for Fulham, if we sort of go back and look over their records, Mitrovic was the main man in those 3 seasons. Maybe that's why Vinicius wasn't getting a look in. Is Mitrovic still there? No, he's at Fiorentina. So by the looks of it, Mitrovic went to Fiorentina, which gave Vinicius his chance, and he jumped on it. Once he was told, you're the main man up front, all of a sudden, he's top goal scorer in 2 of the 3 seasons and scores more than Mitrovic did in his last season and as many as he did in his first one. So you can't knock the guy. You really can't. If he's given a chance, by the looks of it, he will score goals. Fans Player of the Year, he's picked that up most recently, in the most recent season. Highest average rating, again, most recently. And he's on the all-time João Palhinha season 2 and Nathan Redmond season 4. But other than that, Carlos Vinicius, he's outplayed in 3 of the other players that have won the highest average rating over the 3 of the last 6 seasons. He's got to be worth a punt at a cheap price. Hence why he's made our top 10 list. So I'll be honest, our third player on the list, I'm not sure how available this guy genuinely is, but he had to get a mention for how good he's been for Arsenal. Takahiro Tomiyasu starts the game with a ridiculous value, and I'll be honest, even now 6 years later, he's still got a ridiculous value, 78 to 233 million. Not entirely sure how available this guy is, what sort of budget you've got to spend in, but if you are looking for a player that can play as a solid right back, has the versatility to come into centre back, can play left back as well. This guy can play anywhere across your back line. He can play as a full back, he can play as a wing back. He's one of the most versatile defenders on the game. The reason he's made our list is if you look at his stats for Arsenal, only now in season 6 is he starting to drop off. For 4 seasons, he was up there with the very best players, not just at Arsenal, but in the Premier League. And he just gets better and better. Injury-wise, he's not very injury-prone. He plays virtually every game. He chips in with the odd assist. He's clearly extremely good defensively because this guy... I always look at average ratings, and I think if you're scoring a lot of goals, if you're scoring a lot of assists, you guys will have noticed when you're playing your games... If a player's on a 6.6, 6.5, they score a goal, they immediately jump to a 7.2, 7.3. For players that are not scoring a lot of goals and are not scoring a lot of assists, if they're still consistently scoring 7.25, 7.34 averages across the whole season, it means that defensively, or what they're doing for the team otherwise, is immense. So Takahiro Tomiyasu makes the list simply for that reason. My only concern is I don't know how much you'd have to pay for him. At the start of my Liverpool save, I tried to sign him from Arsenal and we were talking silly money. We were in the realms of 6-figure £1 million fees, over £100 million. But if you wanted a defender that can play anywhere, I don't know, you're Man City and weirdly you've just sold Erling Haaland for 400 million and you've got a casual £100 million spare and you want one of the best defenders on the game, Takahiro Tomiyasu is not the most obvious person to go to, but looking at what he's achieved for Arsenal, he is absolutely worth looking at if you've got the money. It may also be worth noting, I mean, this save here that I simmed for 6 seasons, he got played. He got played in every game. The managers clearly liked him. I mean, I don't know if Arteta's still there. No, Diego Simeone. And throughout, let's have a look at Arsenal's managers. So Mikel Arteta has been there for pretty much most of that time. So Arteta clearly likes Tomiyasu. If on your save, Arteta, say, gets sacked in the first season, Arsenal are unachieving, a new manager comes in and doesn't favour him, he's not getting played. Say he's not getting played, Tomiyasu's not getting in the team. You might find on your save that his value has dropped off significantly. You might find that he's available for 20, 30 million because he's unhappy. I don't know. If he is, my advice is snap him up. Snap him up right now. The first thing you do when you come off this video is load up your save, get your checkbook out and sign Tomiyasu, because he is awesome. And those stats prove it. So sticking with the theme of versatile players, they don't come more versatile than Brighton's Solly March. And again, this is a player that, personally, for me, I would never dream of going in and thinking I'm going to sign Solly March on my game. However, this guy can play pretty much anywhere down either wing. He can play central midfield. He can play attacking midfield. He could probably be trained into a defensive midfield role. Solly March can cover your injury woes, your injury problems. He is possibly going to be one of the best squad players out there on the game. Now, the reason that he's made our list is because of how ultra consistent he's been for Brighton. Granted, his best overall season, when he absolutely smashed it in with a 7.47 rating, was in the Championship. But even in the Premier League, season 1, 6.91, not fantastic. However, back in the Premier League after a stint in the Championship, 7.02, 7.15, coming in as a squad player. I have checked, and looking over this season, for a start, most of his appearances now at 32, 33 years old are coming on as a substitute. So he has played 21 games. Again, last season was very much the same, hence the dip in ratings. But he's still offering something to the team. He's still good enough to come off the bench in more than half of Brighton's games at 33 years old. Now, when you first start the game, if you're willing to take a chance on a player that you just want to fill the gaps, you want a player that can come off the bench, play anywhere, who's going to do a job for you, who can score 5-6 goals a season, who can bang in 5-6 assists a season, who's going to be consistent with their average rating, then Solly March is the player for you. And I would definitely consider this guy for exactly that. He's not a world beater. He's not going to go out there. He's not going to get you 15 assists a season out of nowhere. But he is going to do a solid job. Now, on our Liverpool save that we loaded up just to see how much these players would cost, at the start of the game, you'd be able to get Solly March for somewhere in the region of 29 to 31 million pounds ish. Now, from my perspective, if you're looking for a player that's going to do you the next 5 years as a squad player, and you spread that fee, maybe you bung, I don't know, 10 million up front and pay 15 million in add-ons with, say, monthly installments over the next 3 years, it's going to work out relatively cheap for you doing it that way, and that's the way I would recommend it. From his perspective, like I said, Solly March is one of those players that can be utilised as squad brilliantly and will last right up to the age of 32, 33 in the Premier League. He's not going to be the most expensive player. These have come through salary wage rises over the years, staying at Brighton, staying loyal to Brighton. But I would definitely consider Solly March for that. Again, if on your save he is a player that has fallen out of favour with the current manager, he's not getting in the team for any reason, he's unhappy for any reason, and you can pick him up at a cut down price of anywhere between, say, 10 and 20 million, absolutely worth that money. 100%. With regards to obviously what he's done for Brighton and where he's featured in their record books over the years, Solly March has been named, he recorded the highest average rating at the club across all competitions twice. So 36 appearances in 25-26 with a 7.18 and 7.44 that season when he was back in the Championship. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're a Championship side and looking for a player and Solly March is available, then he is going to tear up the Championship for you all day long. I would be looking at, certainly if you're Championship coming up to the Premier League, and you're not on the world's biggest budgets, then Solly March is a player worth looking at, and he's the sort of player that's going to grind you out certain results and keep you in the Premier Division, I'm sure. Fans Player of the Year, he won it 3 years in a row, so clearly in high favour with the fans, and his performances across a whole season are good enough for them to rate him. Most assists in a season, he appears once there, so don't get me wrong, that was quite a poor season if he's winning that with 6, but in general, like I said, for a squad player and someone, again, that I think 95% of FM23 players are never going to look at and never going to consider, would be Solly March. Hopefully this video has brought him to your attention as someone to just have a quick butcher's at. Next up on our list is one of my favourite players in the Premier League at the moment from an English perspective. I love this guy. I think he really should start to feature in the England team a little bit more for Gareth Southgate this year, and I hope he gets a couple of shots if he can keep up his form. Don't get me wrong, I know this year he's dipped slightly, but I think that's West Ham as a whole rather than Bowen himself. But yes, Jarrod Bowen is the next person on our list. Now, at the start of the game, again, he might not be the most obvious player to go for as an attacking midfielder stroke striker type role, inside forward, inside winger. However, you can pick him up for around, I was looking at paying somewhere in the region of 42 to 44 million to get him, which again, in Premier League terms of what you'll pay for a very, very good player, especially one that's English. And now with obviously the new rules with England not being in the EU and having to get work permits, Jarrod Bowen doesn't require one, which does seem to inflate the price of English players, but Jarrod Bowen is still available for just over 40 mil. What you'll get from Jarrod Bowen for 40 million, just over 40 million quid, is a player that's going to give you 6 seasons of solid results. West Ham have stayed in the Premier League for the whole 6 seasons on this save. Jarrod Bowen is scoring goals, chipping in with goals, chipping in with assists, but it's these average ratings of how good he is over the course of every season, and he just seems to be getting stronger and stronger. I mean, 7.05 is the lowest he's gone in 6 seasons. 7.13, 7.30, 7.32. He's up there again with the best players in the Premier League, and definitely is worth a shout. If you're looking for a player and you're happy to spend the money on him, I would recommend Jarrod Bowen. Especially if you're looking for English players, 100% get Jarrod Bowen. And from an English perspective, he needs to be right up there in your top 2, top 3 choices to get in your team for a decent price, without going to like the England players that are going to cost you 70, 80, 90, 100 million pounds. Jarrod Bowen is well worth just over 40 million quid. With regards to West Ham, when we look at their history, as we're doing with all these players, he has there's a little spoiler there, guys, that I'll just give away on our next player. Fans Player of the Year, Jarrod Bowen's won it 5 out of 6 times. Again, testament to just how good he's been, that the fans rate him every year pretty much as their best player. Most assists, he's not there, but we've seen from his stats that he does chip in every season. We 100% Jarrod Bowen, get him in your team, 40 million quid. In my opinion, it's a steal. Now, I said when we were doing Jarrod Bowen in the last one that there was a little, well, I nearly gave this one away, or pretty much did give this one away, with a little spoiler when we're going through the West Ham team, because yes, we are turning to West Ham again, and it is a player that when you start your saves, he's only just joined. Gianluca Scamacca, however you want to say it, has just joined West Ham for £34.5 million. However, that doesn't mean they're not willing to let him go. I actually put in a bid when I was Liverpool and agreed a fee for just under 47 million. So if you give them 12-13 million pounds profit straight away, they will let Scamacca join your club without even kicking a football for the Hammers. And in my opinion, he is well worth that. Strikers that can score goals consistently in the Premier League are hard to find on Football Manager, becoming notoriously hard to find, without going and signing the same old wonder kids, the same players that everyone else signs, that are guaranteed to give you goals. I'm trying to find that player that is not more so obvious, not the one that everyone else is turning to, but as you can see from his stats here, will give you 18, 16, 20 goals a season in the Premier League. Gianluca Scamacca scores goals for fun in the Premier League. Granted, the first couple of seasons a bit slow, maybe when he's settling into English football. Keep an eye on him. Maybe let him have a season at West Ham. If he doesn't do great, you might get him at cheaper than the 47 or whatever it was that I had to pay to sign him for Liverpool straight away. You might not have to. Keep an eye, because these first couple of seasons are not great, and you might find that you can pick up. But once he's settled into English football, once he's settled in and he's comfortable with the English game, 18, 20, 16. That is good enough for any Premier League team. If I'm getting that, bearing in mind this page here only shows us Premier League goals. This isn't all competitions. This is just in the Premier League. If I've got a player that's scoring, 58, 74 goals across 4 seasons for me in the Premier League, I'm happy. I'm very, very happy with that. Even if you sign him as your backup striker, maybe you've got one of those wonder kids that gets you 30, 40 goals a season. Maybe you've found the next Haaland. Get Schumacher in as your backup. Get him in as your guy to cover the injury, because he is going to do a job for you. Looking at these stats, he's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Stays loyal to West Ham. Stats don't really seem to drop off. I mean, he's still only 29 on the game. So you'll get, when you sign him at the start of the game, if you keep him around, you'll get a good 6, 7, 8, 9 years out of this guy. So again, when you're paying less than 50 million, and if you get eight seasons out of the guy, then from that perspective, you're laughing. I mean, that's working out, say, just over £4 million a season. That is bargain money. His value is 38 to 114 million now at 29 years old. So even if you sign him at the start there for 47 million, have 4-5 seasons out of him, you might get 100 million for him further on. I don't know. Maybe you sign him to make profit on later. But Schumacher is the next player on our list. Another hammer, and well worth you guys looking at, as not a so obvious one. And I think it's not so obvious because although people fancy him in real life, know him as a good striker, because he's only just joined West Ham, a lot of people probably don't go there and think that they can get him or think of getting him. In real life, we're still looking for him to prove himself. Telling you what, 6 seasons on in FM23, he's shown me that he's absolutely proved himself and he can do a very, very good job for you. With regards to the records, you can see he has been West Ham's top goal scorer every single season for 6 seasons in a row. In all competitions, he is averaging about 23 to 24 goals a season. Bang on, get Schumacher in your team, great striker. So when people look at starting a new save on FM23 and they're looking at Wolves, and Wolves are known for bringing through Portuguese, excellent quality players, specifically in midfield, a lot of people turn straight to Ruben Neves and are quite willing to fork out 80, 90, 100 million to get him in their team. Granted, I'm not saying don't do that. He's a great player. However, your alternative option is the one that's just joined Wolves in real life. Matheus Nunes is still only 29 on my game, so he must start the game around 23. With my Liverpool save, where I started one just to see what I'd have to pay for these players, yes, he's expensive. It was in the region of 70, 71 million that I had to spend to get Nunes into my team. But having just spent 41 million on him, I would fully expect Wolves to expect that sort of money to let him go without even kicking a football for them. But he is available for around that sort of dough. And he won't disappoint. If you spend the money that you're willing to spend on Ruben Neves instead on Matheus Nunes, who can play anywhere through the midfield, by the way, predominantly a central midfielder, class now as world class, at 29 years old in 2028, can play down the wing if really necessary, if you're really stuck for injuries, can play defensive midfield, can play attacking midfield, great as a box to box. He can finish. He can dribble, he can pass, he's got great vision, his work rate's great. All round, this is a world-class elite central midfielder. And at the start of the game, you can get him for 70 odd million quid and get 7, 8, 9 seasons out of him. Again, great value for money. When we look at his stats over the years, again, as a central midfielder, he chips in with goals, he chips in with assists, and he is absolutely solid with his average rating. He's just had his best year, 6 seasons in, for joint goals and assists return with 14. He's contributed to 14 goals this year, 3 man of the match awards, and his second best average rating that he's maintained over a whole season. Again, I'm trying to pick players for you here as well that prove not to be injury prone. And again, you can see he's only missed 1 game every single season for the last 4 seasons for Wolves. So this guy doesn't get injured. You spend the money, you're not going to have a player that's sitting in the medical room for most of his time. Waste of money. This guy will absolutely be worth the dough that you spend on him. And I would recommend, if I was starting a new save with a big club and I had the money to spend, I would be buying Nunes over Ruben Neves all day long. and I'll probably get him for the same, if not cheaper money. I've never signed Ruben Neves, so I don't know how much you have to spend for him, so forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm guessing it's going to be big bucks, and I would rather spend the money on this kid. With regards to Wolves' history, I'm not sure if he's won any records with them at all. Obviously, we wouldn't expect him to be top goal scorer. Most assists, he's popped up 3 out of the last 6 seasons as Wolves' most creative player. Fans Player of the Year, yep, no surprise there. 4 times out of the last 6 seasons, the fans have voted Matheus Nunes as their best player in their club. I would get him in. Yes, he's one of the most expensive players on our list, but again, at 71 million quid-ish, for me, well worth the money. Sticking with Wolves, sticking with Portugal, and a player that you can sign from them that's going to cost you nowhere near as much as our previous man, Matheus Nunes. If you need a right back in the Premier League and you've got 29-30 million pounds to spend, which is what it was for me to get him at the start of that Liverpool save that I set up, Nelson Semedo, you won't go far wrong. If you need a right back and you need someone, granted he's 34 on my game now, so he's going to be about 27-28 at the start of yours, but even though he's 34 now, he is still one of the best right backs in the Premier League, without a doubt. If anything, he's actually getting better with age. 7.09, one slight dip under 7 there in season 2, but since then 7.15, 7.23, 7.29, 7.19. Chips in with the odd assist. This guy is a fantastic right back for Premier League clubs. He will not let you down. Like I said, for less than 30 million quid, which I see as anyone that's worth less than, or you can pick up for less than 30 million quid in the Premier League, has got to be seen as a bargain, especially if it's going to be a first team player that's going to play week in, week out. And these players, obviously, like I said, you can turn to the usual wonder kids. You can do the let's look on forums and just do the same old wonder kid that keeps popping up all the time. Like I said, the point of this video is to give you players that are not necessarily the straight go-to. And Nelson Semedo, again, is a player that I've never signed on FM. He's a player that I've never even really looked at. But when I saw these stats coming off the back of this test of running and simulating 6 seasons, he would be up there as potentially my first choice right back to sign now as well. Again, offers some versatility in the fact that he can play right back, he can play wing back, he can play as a midfielder if need be as well. If you need to push him up into a winger, he's got the ability to do it. He's got the pace, he's got the work rate, he's got good dribbling ability, he can cross the ball, he can do it all. So you could train him into a right winger if you needed that player, and then have him as a spare right back. I don't know, you do with him as you wish. But again, even 6 seasons in, he's only on 63 grand a week. He's not going to cost you the earth. You're not going to have to pay this guy 250 grand a week to be a first team regular for you. This guy isn't going to cost you silly money off your wage bill as well. So again, hopefully Nelson Semedo is a player that has been brought to your attention that you think, do you know what, I do need a right back. I've got 29 million spent. Bang, I'm on it. Hopefully it's been of use. With regards to Wolves records, Nelson Semedo has been named as their Fans Player of the Year, most recently only 2 seasons ago. Within the highest average ratings, he does pop up once there as well a couple of seasons ago. So yeah, but it's his consistency that we're looking at. When we look at his overall stats, we are looking at one of the most consistent right backs in the game. Next up, I've got another player for you that you can pick up straight off the bat in your FM23 saves for less than 30 million quid. It's Harvey Barnes at Leicester. He will cost you in the region of 28 to 29 million, and as an attacking midfielder, again, this is a player that shows ultra consistency over the years to come. He's not on huge wages, which sounds crazy to say. The guy's still on 100 grand a week, but he's not up there in the realms of your 250s eating away at your wage budget. He's affordable and well worth the money. Again, when people go to Leicester, straight away you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go and sign Tielemans. I might sign an aging Vardy for his pace or whatever it might be. My suggestion is have a look at Harvey Barnes. If we look at Harvey Barnes' history on this save, 6 seasons. In season 1, not fantastic. However, not terrible. Kicking on from there, 7.14 to 7.21 ratings, chipping in with 5 to 7 goals, a few assists every season. This guy will do a good job for you. I am convinced as well that you put Harvey Barnes in a better team than Leicester, who create more chances. I think this guy scores more goals and gets more assists. Personal opinion, I think if he's getting regularly contributing to 10 goals a season with Leicester, I think put him in a better team, take a punt on him for 28, 29 million, and he'll contribute to 15, maybe 20 goals a season with goals and assists. Prove me wrong, but that's what I think. And I think he is well worth a look at. Again, he's only 30 on the game now. He's still got a couple of seasons left in him. If I was to sim this for a couple more seasons, it would not surprise me if he maintains this sort of form for 2 more seasons. So that for that investment as well, for less than £30 million, you're going to get a player that's going to give you, again, 6 to 8 solid seasons, great return on average rating, majorly consistent over years to come, going to score you goals, going to get you assists. Harvey Barnes has to be considered. The reason I like him as well, the reason I've put him into this video is because you probably wouldn't sign him based on his stats. Yeah, he's got some good stats, but he certainly doesn't jump off the page. And he's even got some points on here that are cause for concern. Concentration only being 10, bravery, aggression. He's not an aggressive player. Positioning is pretty poor. However, I mean, and even in his major strengths, his passing is only 13, his finishing is only 13. This is a player who will absolutely give you more from what he does in the game than what his attributes suggest that he should do for you. And based on that, he is one of my favourite players on this list, and certainly one that on any future saves I would absolutely be considering spending less than £30 million to bring to my club. And my final player on this list of 10 Premier League players that are not so common for you to look at signing is probably the biggest bargain that you'll get. Probably the least amount of money you'll have to spend for an extremely consistent player. That player is Mads. Now, I hope I'm saying this right. It's Roerslev. Mads Roerslev of Brentford. You can pick up at the start of your save for about 10 to 11 million pounds. 10 to 11 million pounds for a player that can give you ultra consistent performances for the next 6 seasons at least. Bearing in mind on my game he's 28 years old. He's only 28, so he's still got potentially 4 seasons in him. This guy could give you 10 seasons for 10 million quid. That is mental. I mean, anyone that's not signing Mads Roerslev off this video as a right back, even if it's as your backup rubber, he'd probably take a backup position. But he's good enough to be your regular starter. I mean, he is for Brentford. We're 6 seasons in. Brentford have dropped down to the Championship once and come straight back up. But he is their number 1 right back, and he has been for a number of years. And as you can see, for 10 million quid, a player that is giving you, I mean, one slight dip to 6.95, but a player that's giving you a rating in the region of 7.14, 7.17, 7.18, consistently, chips in with the odd assist, gets man of the matches. I mean, for 10 million quid, what do you want? What do you want for 10 million quid? 6 seasons later, he's worth up to 53 million as well. If you can sign him for 10 million in the first season, you might get 50, 60, 70 million for this guy, 6 or 7 years down the line. That is great investment for your team as well. So, potentially, although he's probably my most least famous, my most least obvious, maybe even my most least wowing on his stats. I mean, this guy hasn't scored a goal for 6 seasons, but he is a right back. He's possibly my favourite on the list. Possibly the one that I like the most, just because he's 10 million quid. He's just so cheap. He's just so cheap for such a consistent player. Having a look at Brentford, has he won any of the awards for the club? Do the fans love him? Let's have a look. Fans Player of the Year. Yep, he has picked it up twice. He's been... So as a right back that hasn't scored a single goal, the fans have still voted him as their Player of the Year 2 out of the last 6 seasons. That for me is impressive. Highest average rating 3 out of those 6 seasons. He's been the best player at the club. Yeah, this guy's got to be worth 10 million of your hard-earned cash all day long. And that brings an end to our video today. That brings an end to this video, which showed you 10 players that are maybe not the most obvious players for you to buy from Premier League clubs at the start, or maybe even a little bit further through your saves. Let me know what you think. If you like this content, these videos, like I said at the start, they do take a long time to produce. I do put a lot of time into these, which is even harder as a full-time working dad as well. But I enjoy it. I'm doing it as a hobby. If you like it, please do hit that subscribe button. There's a few more videos knocking around on my page. So I've done a Erling Haaland test where we put him in every Premier League club to see how he got on. That had some surprising results. My career mode as well, so my European journeyman, which is from garbage to greatness. You can search that on YouTube. We're on about episode 4 or 5 of that as well now, and we've started off with no coaching badges, no experience. We've started with a minnow club in Sweden as we try to save them from relegation. So please do follow that if you want to see that sort of content as well. Glad to have you here. Really appreciate the support. Thanks to all those of you that have subscribed already again, and like I said, please keep an eye out for the next video. Have a good day. See you later.